A billionaire spent millions trying to save his paralyzed daughter. The best doctors in the world couldn't help her. She hadn't smiled in 2 years. She hadn't laughed. She was fading away right before his eyes. Then one afternoon, a barefoot homeless boy slipped through the fence of their mansion. He had no money, no home, nothing to offer except one thing. He started dancing. What happened in the next 10 minutes would shock the world and prove that sometimes the greatest miracles don't come from those who have everything, but from those who have nothing at all. This is their story, and I promise you, by the end of this, you'll never look at life the same way again. Stay with me. Welcome to the City of Stories. While you are here, please hit the subscribe button and comment your view on the story and where you're watching from. Let me tell you a story that will touch your heart. A story about how sometimes the smallest acts of kindness can change everything. In the heart of Beverly Hills, California, there stood a magnificent estate that most people only dreamed about. Behind its tall iron gates lived Thomas Bennett, one of the most successful tech entrepreneurs in America. His company had revolutionized social media and made him billions. People called him the Silicon King because everything he touched in the tech world turned to gold. But you see, friends, money cannot buy everything. And Thomas Bennett knew this truth better than anyone. Inside that beautiful mansion with its marble floors and crystal chandeliers, there lived a little girl named Lily. She was 9 years old, with soft brown curls and eyes that once sparkled like stars. Lily used to run through those grand hallways, her laughter echoing off the walls. She used to dance in the garden, chasing butterflies and singing songs her mother taught her. But that was before the terrible accident that took everything away. 2 years ago, Thomas was driving his family home from a weekend getaway. His wife, Sarah, sat beside him. Lily was in the back seat, telling them about a dream she had. Then, in one horrible moment, a truck ran a red light. The crash was devastating. Sarah died instantly. And Lily, sweet little Lily, survived, but she could no longer walk. The doctors said her spine was damaged. They said she might never walk again. Thomas tried everything. He flew Lily to Switzerland for experimental treatments. He brought specialists from Japan, from England, from every corner of the world. He spent millions, maybe tens of millions, searching for a cure. But nothing worked. The worst part wasn't that Lily couldn't walk. The worst part was that she stopped smiling. She stopped talking much. She stopped being the bright, joyful child she once was. It was as if when her mother died and her legs stopped working, something inside her died too. Day after day, Lily sat in her wheelchair by the window of her room, staring out at the garden she used to play in. Her nanny, Mrs. Patterson, would wheel her outside sometimes, hoping the fresh air would help. But Lily just sat there, silent and sad, trapped in a world of grief and loneliness. Thomas watched his daughter fade away, and it broke him. He was a man who had solved impossible problems in business, who had built an empire from nothing. But he couldn't fix this. He couldn't bring back his daughter's smile. He couldn't make her laugh again. At night, he would stand outside her bedroom door and listen to the silence. Sometimes he heard her crying softly. Those were the nights when he felt most helpless. He would go to his own room and sit in the dark, wondering if Lily would ever heal, if she would ever be happy again. The mansion became a place of sadness. The staff walked quietly through the halls. Nobody played music. Nobody raised their voice in joy. It was as if the whole house was mourning, holding its breath, waiting for something to change. Thomas threw himself into work, but even success felt empty. What did it matter that his company's stock was rising? What did it matter that people called him brilliant? His daughter was suffering, and he couldn't help her. Friends told him to be patient. Therapists said grief takes time. Doctors said to keep trying. But Thomas was losing hope. Every day that passed without seeing Lily's smile felt like another small death. The garden, once filled with Lily's laughter, now stood silent. The swings hung motionless. The flowers bloomed, but nobody stopped to admire them. It was a beautiful prison, and both Thomas and Lily were trapped inside it. One warm afternoon in late spring, Mrs. Patterson wheeled Lily out to the garden as usual. She placed the wheelchair near the rose bushes, where Lily could feel the sun on her face. Then she went inside to prepare lunch, leaving Lily alone with her thoughts. Lily sat there, her small hands folded in her lap, her eyes distant. She was thinking about her mother, about the life she used to have, about all the things she would never do again. The sadness felt so heavy, like a weight pressing down on her chest. She didn't notice the small hole in the hedge at first. She didn't see the movement behind the iron fence. But something was about to happen. Something that nobody could have predicted. Sometimes, my friends, miracles come from the most unexpected places. Sometimes they don't arrive in fancy cars or expensive packages. Sometimes they slip through holes in fences, barefoot and hungry, carrying nothing but a pure heart and a gift the world had forgotten. And on that quiet afternoon, while Lily sat alone in her sadness, while Thomas worked in his office trying to forget his pain, while the whole mansion held its breath in sorrow, a miracle was about to walk through that garden gate. Because just outside those walls, wandering the streets of Beverly Hills, was a boy who had nothing except a spirit that refused to be broken. A boy who would soon teach them all what truly matters in life. This is where our story really begins. His name was Danny, though nobody knew if that was his real name or just one he gave himself. He was 12 years old, skinny as a rail, with tangled black hair and worn-out sneakers held together with tape. Danny had no home. He slept wherever he could find shelter. Under the overpass near the freeway, in the doorway of closed shops, sometimes in the park if the police didn't chase him away. He had no parents, at least none that anyone knew about. Some people said his mother abandoned him when he was little. Others said she died, and he ran away from foster care. Danny never talked about it. Life on the streets was hard, let me tell you. There were days when Danny's stomach ached so badly from hunger that he could barely stand. There were nights when the cold bit through his thin jacket, and he shivered until morning. There were moments when he felt so alone, so invisible, that he wondered if anyone would even notice if he disappeared. But Danny had something special. Something that kept him going when everything else said to give up. He could dance. Not fancy ballet or professional moves. Just pure, joyful, ridiculous dancing. When Danny danced, he forgot about being hungry. He forgot about having no home. He forgot about all the people who walked past him without seeing him. When he moved his body to music only he could hear, he felt free. Danny danced at traffic lights, hoping drivers would smile and toss him some coins. He danced outside restaurants where rich people ate expensive meals. Sometimes they laughed at him. Sometimes they ignored him. But sometimes, just sometimes, they saw him, really saw him, and their faces would soften. On that particular afternoon, Danny was wandering through Beverly Hills. He knew he didn't belong there. The security guards usually chased him away. But he liked to look at the big houses and imagine what it would be like to live in one, to have a bed and 3 meals a day, and people who cared about you. He was walking past a particularly grand estate when he noticed a gap in the hedge near the iron fence. Curious, he peeked through. That's when he saw her. A little girl in a wheelchair, sitting all alone. Her head was down, her shoulders slumped. Even from a distance, Danny could see the sadness radiating from her like a dark cloud. Something stirred in Danny's chest. He knew that kind of sadness. He lived with it every day. And in that moment, looking at this girl who had everything he didn't have, a home, money, safety, he realized that sadness doesn't care about wealth. Pain is pain, whether you sleep in a mansion or under a bridge. Danny glanced around. No one was watching. The guards were at the front gate, far away. He could slip through that gap in the hedge easily. He shouldn't. He knew he shouldn't. If they caught him, they'd call the police. They might lock him up. But something stronger than fear pulled him forward. He squeezed through the hedge and stepped into the garden. The girl didn't notice him at first. She was lost in her own world of sadness. Danny stood there for a moment, his heart pounding. Then he took a deep breath and did the only thing he knew how to do. He began to dance. He started with big, exaggerated steps, lifting his knees high like a cartoon character. Then he spun around, his arms flailing wildly. He made his eyes go wide and stuck out his tongue. He pretended to trip over his own feet and caught himself at the last second. The girl looked up, startled. Danny didn't stop. He danced harder, sillier. He moved like a robot with broken parts. He hopped on one foot, then the other. He spun in circles until he was dizzy. He made funny sounds, beep, 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 like a car horn. And then, like the sun breaking through clouds, the girl smiled. It was a small smile at first, barely there. But it was real. Danny's heart soared. He kept going, encouraged now. He pretended to be a monkey, scratching under his arms. He walked like a penguin. He moved in slow motion like he was walking through honey. The girl giggled. Actually giggled. The sound was like music to Danny's ears. He danced even more energetically, rolling on the grass, jumping up, bowing dramatically like a prince. And then Lily laughed. A real, genuine, beautiful laugh that seemed to surprise even her. For the first time in 2 years, joy filled that garden. Danny didn't know who this girl was. He didn't know about her accident or her dead mother or her paralyzed legs. All he knew was that his dancing was making her happy, and that made him feel like the richest person in the world. He performed for 20 minutes straight, until he was sweating and breathing hard. Every time he thought about stopping, Lily would clap her hands, and he'd find new energy. But Danny didn't know something important. He didn't know that high above them, standing on a second-floor balcony, someone was watching. Thomas Bennett had heard an unfamiliar sound drifting through his office window, laughter. His daughter's laughter. A sound he thought he might never hear again. He rushed to the balcony and looked down. What he saw made his blood run cold, then hot, then cold again. A street kid. A dirty, ragged boy was in his garden, dancing in front of his daughter. Thomas's first instinct was fury. How dare this boy trespass on his property? Who did he think he was? Thomas was about to call security, about to shout down at the boy to get out. But then he looked at Lily. Her face was alive. Her eyes were bright. She was clapping and laughing with a joy he hadn't seen since before the accident. And Thomas froze, his anger melting into something else entirely. Thomas stood on that balcony, hidden behind a marble column, watching something he couldn't quite believe. His daughter, his sad, broken daughter who hadn't smiled in 2 years, was transformed. Her cheeks were flushed with excitement. Her hands were moving, clapping with energy he'd forgotten she had. Her whole body seemed more alive than it had been in months. And the cause of this miracle? A homeless boy doing ridiculous dances on his lawn. Thomas's mind raced. Part of him was still angry. This was trespassing. The boy could be dangerous. What if he was planning to steal something? What if he hurt Lily? But another part of him, the father part, couldn't deny what he was seeing. In 20 minutes, this boy had done what millions of dollars couldn't do. He'd brought Lily back to life. Thomas watched as the boy finally stopped dancing, breathing hard. Lily was clapping and smiling. The boy gave a deep, theatrical bow, and Lily laughed again. Then, as quickly as he'd appeared, the boy turned and ran back toward the hedge. "Wait!" Thomas found himself shouting. But the boy had already slipped through and disappeared. Thomas rushed downstairs and out into the garden. Lily's face was still glowing with happiness. "Daddy," she said, actually excited to see him. Did you see the boy dancing?" "I saw," Thomas said quietly, kneeling beside her wheelchair. "He was so funny, Daddy. He made all these silly faces and he danced like..." She tried to explain but ended up just giggling. That night, Thomas couldn't sleep. He kept thinking about the boy. About Lily's laughter. About how wrong he'd been to think money could solve everything. The next afternoon, Thomas was in his office when he heard it again, Lily's laughter from the garden. He went to the window. The boy was back, dancing even more energetically than before. And Lily was responding, not just with laughter, but with movement. She was trying to lift her arms, trying to sway in her wheelchair. Thomas went downstairs and out into the garden. When the boy saw him, fear flashed across his face. He stopped dancing and started backing toward the hedge. "Please, sir, I wasn't doing anything bad," the boy said quickly. "I just wanted to make her smile." "What's your name?" Thomas asked, keeping his voice calm. "Danny." "Where do you live, Danny?" The boy hesitated. Around. Around where?" "Just around. Different places." Thomas understood. "You're homeless." Danny's jaw tightened, but he nodded. "Why did you come here?" Thomas asked. Danny looked at Lily, then back at Thomas. "I saw her yesterday. She looked so sad. I know what sad feels like, sir. I thought maybe if I danced, she'd feel better. I didn't mean any harm. I wasn't going to steal nothing." The simple honesty in the boy's words struck Thomas deeply. "He makes me happy, Daddy," Lily said. "Please don't send him away." Thomas looked at his daughter's face, so full of life now. He looked at the boy, skinny and scared but standing his ground. "All right," Thomas said finally. "You can come back. But only in the afternoon, and only in the garden where I can see you." "Understood." Danny's whole face lit up. "Yes, sir. Thank you, sir." So it became routine. Every afternoon at 4 o'clock, Danny would slip through the hedge. For 2 hours, he'd dance and play and make Lily laugh. Before he left, the cook would bring him a meal, which he ate gratefully. Thomas watched these sessions carefully at first, still cautious. But as days turned into weeks, he began to see something remarkable happening. Lily was changing. Not just emotionally, but physically. The doctors had said her paralysis was permanent, but Thomas noticed small movements. Her fingers gripped the wheelchair arms with more strength. Her shoulders straightened. Sometimes her toes would flex slightly. More importantly, she was engaged with life again. She talked more. She asked questions. She looked forward to Danny's visits with an excitement that warmed Thomas's heart. Danny changed too. He gained weight from regular meals. His eyes grew brighter. He started telling stories about his life on the streets. Not sad stories, but funny ones that made Lily giggle. One afternoon, Thomas sat down with Danny while Lily rested. "Tell me about yourself," Thomas said. "Really tell me." Danny was quiet for a moment. "My mom died when I was 7. I don't remember my dad. I was in foster care for a while, but it wasn't good. So I left. Been on my own since I was 9. "That's 3 years, Thomas said, his chest tightening. "Yeah. Why do you dance?" Danny thought about it. "When you got nothing and nobody, you got to find something that's yours, you know? Dancing is mine. When I dance, I'm not just some homeless kid people ignore. I'm somebody. And when I can make someone else happy, like Lily, then I feel like maybe I matter." Thomas felt tears prick his eyes. "You matter, Danny. You matter very much." One sunny afternoon, something extraordinary happened. Danny was in the middle of his robot dance when Lily suddenly said, "Stop. I want to try something." She gripped the arms of her wheelchair. Her face scrunched up with effort. "Lily, what are you?" Thomas started, but she was already pushing. Slowly, impossibly, Lily began to rise from her wheelchair. Her legs were shaking. Her arms were trembling. But inch by inch, she lifted herself until she was standing. For 5 incredible seconds, Lily stood on her own 2 feet. Then she sank back down, but she was smiling wider than Thomas had ever seen. "I did it," she whispered. "Daddy," I stood up. Danny was jumping and cheering. Thomas was crying. And in that moment, everything changed. That evening, after Danny had left and Lily was asleep, Thomas sat in his study with a glass of whiskey he didn't drink. His daughter had stood. After 2 years in that wheelchair, after doctors said it was impossible, she had stood. Because of Danny. Thomas had spent millions on the best medical care in the world. He'd hired specialists and therapists. He'd researched every treatment, every possibility. And yet a homeless boy with nothing but a kind heart and silly dances had achieved what all that money couldn't. The realization was humbling. And it changed something deep inside Thomas. The next morning, he called Danny to his office. The boy looked nervous, probably thinking he'd done something wrong. "Sit down, Danny," Thomas said gently. Danny perched on the edge of an expensive leather chair, looking out of place. "I've been thinking," Thomas began. "You've given my daughter something precious. Hope. Joy. A reason to fight. And I want to give you something in return." "You already give me food, sir," Danny said quickly. "That's more than enough." "It's not enough," Thomas said firmly. "Danny, how would you feel about living here? Not as a visitor, but as part of our family." Danny's eyes went wide. You mean stay here? Like really stay?" "Yes. You'd have your own room. 3 meals a day. We'd get you enrolled in school. You'd be safe and cared for." Thomas paused. "Most importantly, you'd be with Lily. She needs you, Danny. And I think you need us too." Tears streamed down Danny's face. He tried to speak but couldn't. Finally, he just nodded. That night, Danny slept in a real bed for the first time in 3 years. The room Thomas gave him had a soft mattress, clean sheets, and a window that overlooked the garden. Danny lay there, staring at the ceiling, almost afraid to close his eyes in case he woke up, and this was all a dream. But it wasn't a dream. It was real. The news spread quickly through Thomas's social circle. Reactions were mixed. Some people were horrified. "You took a street kid into your home?" one business partner said. "Thomas, think about your reputation. What if he steals from you? What if he's dangerous?" Others whispered behind his back. "Bennett has lost his mind. Grief has made him irrational." But Thomas didn't care. He'd spent too many years worrying about what people thought, about maintaining his image as the brilliant tech mogul. That mask had been suffocating. For the first time in his life, he was making a decision based purely on what his heart told him was right. And you know what? Some people understood. Some people admired him. A reporter wrote an article about it. "Tech billionaire opens heart and home to homeless boy." The story went viral. Thousands of people commented, most of them supportive. "This is what real wealth looks like," one person wrote. "Money can't buy the kind of courage it takes to do this," another said. But the most important reactions came from inside the mansion. Mrs. Patterson, who'd been with the family for years, welcomed Danny warmly. "Any friend of Lily's is family to me," she said, hugging him. The cook started making Danny's favorite foods, packing extra in his lunch so he could share with Lily. Even the security guards, who'd initially been suspicious, softened when they saw how Danny and Lily played together in the garden. The mansion that had been so silent, so full of grief, came alive again. Mornings started with Danny and Lily having breakfast together, talking and laughing. Danny would tell funny stories about pigeons he'd met on the streets, making Lily giggle into her orange juice. Afternoons were filled with physical therapy, but now Lily approached it differently. "Come on, Lily, you can do it," Danny would cheer. "Remember yesterday? You stood for 6 seconds. Let's try for 7 today." With Danny's encouragement, Lily worked harder than she ever had before. The therapists were amazed at her progress. "Whatever you're doing," one told Thomas, "keep doing it. She's improving faster than I've ever seen." Evenings became family time. Thomas, who used to work until midnight, now came home for dinner. The three of them would eat together, sharing stories about their day. Sometimes they'd watch movies. Sometimes Danny would put on performances after dinner, making them all laugh. One night, as Thomas tucked Lily into bed, she said something that nearly broke him. "Daddy, I'm not sad anymore. I still miss Mommy every day, but now I feel like it's okay to be happy again. Danny taught me that." Thomas kissed her forehead. "He taught me that too, sweetheart." As weeks passed, Lily's progress continued. She could stand for longer periods. She could take small steps with support. She still used the wheelchair most of the time, but the doctors were now saying something they'd never said before. She might walk again. Maybe not perfectly, but she might walk. Danny flourished too. Enrolled in a private school, he struggled at first. He'd missed so much education. But he worked hard, staying up late with books, determined to catch up. Thomas hired tutors, and Danny soaked up knowledge like a sponge. But more than academics, Danny learned what it meant to be loved. To have people who cared if he came home. To have a father figure who asked about his day and helped with homework. To have a little sister who looked up to him. One Saturday, Thomas took them both to the park. As they walked, Danny pushing Lily's wheelchair, people stared. Not with judgment, but with something else. Warmth. Admiration. An elderly woman stopped them. "Excuse me, but I read about your family in the newspaper. I just wanted to say, what you're doing is beautiful. You're showing people what really matters." After she left, Danny looked at Thomas. "Do people really think that? That what we have is special?" Thomas smiled. "What we have, Danny, is love. And yes, that's the most special thing in the world." 6 months after Danny came to live with the Bennett family, something extraordinary happened. It was a Sunday morning. The sun streamed through the windows of the breakfast room where the family gathered for pancakes, Danny's favorite. Lily had been working especially hard with her physical therapy all week. Her determination, fueled by Danny's constant encouragement, had pushed her to new limits. As they finished eating, Lily looked at both Thomas and Danny with a mischievous smile. "I want to show you something," she announced. "What is it?" Thomas asked. "Just watch." Lily wheeled herself to an open space in the room. She positioned her wheelchair carefully and locked the wheels. Then she placed her hands on the armrests. "Lily, be careful," Thomas said, starting to stand. "I got this, Daddy." With intense concentration, Lily pushed herself up. Her legs trembled, but they held. She was standing, but she didn't stop there. Slowly, carefully, she lifted her right foot and moved it forward. 1 step. Her face was tight with effort, sweat beading on her forehead. Then she moved her left foot. 2 steps. Danny was on his feet, his hands clasped to his chest, tears streaming down his face. "Come on, Lily. You can do it." Thomas couldn't move. He could barely breathe. Step 3. Step 4. Step 5. Lily walked 7 steps before her legs gave out. Danny rushed forward and caught her, and they both fell to the floor, laughing and crying at the same time. "I did it," Lily shouted. "I walked. Did you see? I walked." Thomas knelt beside them, pulling both children into his arms. He was sobbing openly now, not caring who saw. "I'm so proud of you," he whispered to Lily. Then he looked at Danny. "And I'm so grateful for you. You gave us back hope when we had none." Danny hugged him tight. "You gave me a family when I had nothing. We saved each other." And in that moment, it was true. They had saved each other. The media caught wind of Lily's recovery, and the story exploded. News channels wanted interviews. Magazines wanted features. Everyone wanted to know about the homeless boy who helped a paralyzed girl walk again. But Thomas protected his family's privacy. He gave one interview, just one, to tell their story on their own terms. People ask me if I regret taking Danny in, Thomas said to the reporter. They ask if I was worried about my reputation or my safety. The truth is, inviting Danny into our home was the smartest decision I've ever made. And I've made billion-dollar decisions. But none of them matter compared to this. The interviewer asked, "What would you say to people who think you were foolish to trust a homeless child?" Thomas looked directly into the camera. "I'd say that sometimes the people the world overlooks are the very people who have the most to give." Danny had nothing, no home, no money, no family. But he had something more valuable than all of that. He had a pure heart and the ability to love without conditions. He taught my daughter to hope again. He taught me what really matters in life. So who's the fool? The man who judges people by their circumstances, or the man who looks at their heart? The interview went viral. Millions of people watched it. And slowly, the conversation began to change. People started looking at homeless individuals differently. Charities reported an increase in donations. Families began opening their homes to foster children. Danny and Lily's story sparked something beautiful across the country, a reminder that compassion changes lives. 2 years later, on a warm spring afternoon, the Bennett family gathered in their garden for a celebration. Lily, now 11 years old, walked without assistance. She still had a slight limp, and she used a cane on difficult days, but she walked. She ran. She danced. Danny, now 14, had caught up in school and was thriving. He discovered a love for music and was learning to play guitar. But he still danced, especially for Lily, who always laughed at his silly moves. They were celebrating the official adoption. Danny was now legally Daniel Bennett, forever part of the family. Friends and neighbors gathered, along with some of the therapists who'd worked with Lily and social workers who'd helped Danny transition into his new life. As the party wound down and the sun began to set, Thomas found Danny sitting alone on the garden wall, the same spot where he used to slip through the hedge. "What are you thinking about?" Thomas asked, sitting beside him. Danny smiled. "I was remembering the first time I saw Lily. She looked so sad, and I just wanted to make her smile. I never imagined it would lead to all this. You changed our lives, Danny. You changed mine, too. I used to think I was nobody. Just a kid nobody wanted. But you saw me. Really saw me. And you showed me that I matter." Thomas put his arm around Danny's shoulders. "You've always mattered. We were just lucky enough to discover it." They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Danny said something profound for someone so young. "You know what I learned from all this? That love isn't about money or big houses or fancy things. It's about seeing someone who's hurting and choosing to care. It's about giving when you've got nothing to give except yourself. That's real wealth." Thomas felt tears in his eyes again. "When did you become so wise?" "I had a good teacher," Danny said, smiling at him. From inside the house, they heard Lily calling. "Daddy! Danny! Come here. I want to show you my new dance move." They looked at each other and laughed. "She's dancing now," Danny said. "Who would have thought?" "You did," Thomas replied. "You thought it before anyone else did." They walked back inside together, father and son, toward the sound of laughter and music. And the mansion that had once been filled with silence and grief was now alive with joy. If this story touched your heart, remember, we all have the power to change someone's life. Sometimes it doesn't take money or resources. Sometimes it just takes seeing someone who's hurting and choosing to care. Sometimes the greatest gift we can give is simply showing up with love. Where are you watching from? Let me know in the comments below. And if this story moved you, share it with someone who needs to hear it today. Until next time, keep your heart open to unexpected miracles. Keep dancing, even when life is hard. And never forget, love is the greatest wealth of all.